The House Republicans on Thursday, well, I should say the House itself, the House of Representatives, took up a bill called the International Protecting Girls by Preventing Child Marriage Act of 2010. This is a bill that would ensure that child marriage is recognized as a human rights violation. That's all. There's nothing we can do about these 8-year-olds who are forced into marriages in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever. We can't do anything about it. But the country would be on the record as recognizing this as a human rights violation. And part of the act would be to develop comprehensive strategies to prevent such marriages around the world, through NGOs working with governments or working with tribal operations or whatever. It's just something to protect little girls. The legislation seemed likely to get a lot of strong bipartisan support in Congress. And in the Senate it did. It passed by a voice vote unanimously in the Senate. But in the House, last Wednesday, the bill was voted down in the House of Representatives by Republicans who argued the bill is too costly and could lead to increased abortions. Complaints that the measure supporters say have no basis in reality and are just excuses to kill the bill. This measure was introduced by Senators Dick Durbin, Democrat of Illinois, and Olympia Snowe, Republican of Maine. It passed the Senate by unanimous consent, where it attracted a list of 42 co-sponsors, including the serial adulterer David Vitter, senator from Louisiana, Republican, Roger Wicker, Republican from Mississippi. It also had the support of nonpartisan groups like the YMCA. The YWCA. And on December 6th, former President of Ireland, Mary Robinson, and Nobel Peace Prize winner Desmond Tutu wrote an op-ed in the Post praising the U.S. for stepping up to the plate on this. Desmond Tutu wrote, quote, "This act illustrates how support for securing a just and healthy life for every woman and girl transcends politics," end quote. So far, so good, right? I mean, it sounds like a wonderful idea. And it is. The version in the House was introduced by Representatives Betty McCollum, a Democrat of Minnesota, and Andrew Crenshaw, Republican of Florida. It had 112 co-sponsors. What's interesting is that some of those co-sponsors, the Republicans, such as Representative Lee Terry, Republican of Nebraska, wound up voting against the bill. And in the end, only 12 Republicans backed the measure. And 9 Democrats defected to the Republican side. So what happened? Well, last week, a Republican whip alert went out about the child marriage legislation, saying that House Minority Leader John Boehner and House Whip Eric Cantor and Committee on Foreign Affairs ranking member Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, all Republican of Florida, all opposed it. This is what the email said, quote, S-987 authorizes $108 million over 5 years without sufficient oversight of the taxpayers' money. That's $20 million a year. According to the Congressional Research Service, as the email goes on, there is no available confirmed figure on how much taxpayer funding is already being used to fight child marriage in developing countries, and this bill does not address that issue. In contrast, Ranking Member Ros-Lehtinen has introduced H.R. 6521, which would result in no more than $1 million in potential costs, while making it clear that child marriage is a violation of human rights and its prevention should be a goal of U.S. foreign policy, requiring the creation of a multi-year strategy, requiring a comprehensive assessment of what the United States is already doing and funding in the effort to fight child marriage, and requiring that the practice of child marriage in other countries be reported each year as part of the annual Human Rights Report. There are also concerns that funding will be directed to NGOs that promote and perform abortion! Promote and perform abortion, and efforts to combat child marriage could be usurped as a way to overturn pro-life laws. Our little precious pro-life laws. God bless the fetus. God bless that little cluster of cells. God bless that moment when the sperm and the egg say howdy. Ooh. CARE, the leading humanitarian organization fighting child poverty, global poverty, CARE. The organization CARE notes that, quote, more than 60 million girls, many as young as 10, are forced into marriage in so-called developing countries. They're not developing. They're not going anywhere. What are you talking about? They're being exploited by our dying form of capitalism and the new form of capitalism that is run by the Chinese. But anyway, 60 million girls are forced into marriage in developing countries. Many of these girls are married to men more than twice, 3 times their age. Not only does this unacceptable practice thwart a girl's education, it endangers her health and often locks her into a life of poverty. So after Republicans said, no, we're not doing it, the next day Durbin's office put out a statement criticizing the House's failure to pass the bill. A statement, quote, the action on the House floor stopping the child marriage bill tonight and endangering the lives of millions of women and girls around the world. These young girls enslaved in marriage will be brutalized, and many will die when their young bodies are torn apart while giving birth. Those who voted to continue this barbaric practice brought shame to Capitol Hill. End quote. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that implementing the bill would cost $67 million over a 6-year period, assuming appropriation of the necessary amounts. Connor Williams writes in the Washington Post blog, Postpartisan, quote, how can Republicans explain efforts to defeat a human rights bill because $67 million in potential spending exists while simultaneously pushing for a tax cut for wealthy Americans that will add $858 billion to the deficit? Is this at all credible? No. But the Republicans, you see, they are Bible-believing, and by God, if a 60-year-old man wants a 9-year-old bride, well, the Quran says it's okay. The Jewish and Christian Bible says it's okay. So who's to interfere? And besides, if you stop it, there might be abortions.